Civil rights attorney Lee Merritt, you're here at the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Week. What's the importance right now for this moment?
Right now, as we're on the eve of electing the first black female president and Vice President Kamala Harris, we as black folks really need to start talking about legislation, how we're going to get past the aesthetics of having a black woman president and what policies are going to change. And the legislative conference is just a great opportunity to begin to discuss that.
So the way I understand it, that they're not going to be able to possibly keep the Senate. And with that being said, I'm talking about Democrats not being able to keep the Senate. With that being said, police reform, that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, we were not able to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. When I say we as a country were not able to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, even with the Democrats in power, relative power, one over the majority in the Senate. Obviously, police reform is going to have to take a different tack. It's going to be grassroots on up. It's going to be done at a local level, but we still need federal voices from our U.S. Congresswoman. I'm so happy that my former law partner, Jasmine Crockett, is now in the U.S. Congress, and she's leading the charge on ways that we can effectively change the culture of policing, even if we don't get a significant legislation passed.
What happened in your mind when you saw the Miami Dolphins player last weekend?
The arrest of Tyreek Hill by Miami-Dade police officers and the unnecessary brutality, pulling him out of his car, forcing him on the curb, dehumanizing him. I don't think that police culture fully appreciates how dehumanizing that is to black men, because it is standard procedure. It happens far too often, and it points towards exactly the kind of policies that we need to change. Begin to hold police officers accountable to change the culture.
Anything else you'd like to add?
So always such a pleasure to be in the presence of greatness. I appreciate your continual coverage on black issues, forcing the point, particularly after the last presidential debate, Ms. Ryan, where you insisted that each party candidate talk to you about black issues. And I really think it was a missed point. So I'm hoping for a second debate where we really get into some of the pressing issues impacting the black community.
Rashad Robinson, why is it so important to be here at the Congressional Black Caucus Annual Legislative Week right now?
Well, what's happening right now is an opportunity to come together and to strategize, to build around a shared agenda and to understand where we may differ. But this week, every week, for me, is an opportunity to focus in on the priorities. As we head into an election, it's also important to recognize that elections are not just about giving politicians jobs. In fact, they're not about giving politicians jobs. They're about making people's lives better. And so we're going to focus on the work to build an agenda that we can carry through the election cycle and deliver real world change for people. And so that's what this week is about building a black agenda across a range of issues and winning on those issues for the people.
But here, these people are active, they're activated beyond this week and the people beyond this building. How in this moment do you get them registered and even vote on November 5th?
Well, the people in this room are the amplifiers, right? And so it's important to get them the tools. Folks who come to the Congressional Black Caucus event, they're already in formation. And so now we have to focus on fighting the mis and disinformation in our communities, giving people the tools to be in their text chains, in their families, in their beauty shops, in their barber shops, to be in the right conversations. All across this country, we're going to have to do the work to turn out up and down the ballot. You think of a state like Michigan, for instance. There are over 1 million young people in Michigan that are eligible to vote that did not vote in the last election. So you think about Oakland and Wayne County, where most of those folks are. Focusing in on those young people to actually engage, have the conversations, to be able to give people the information they need and connect things like Project 2025 and all the ways in which our very ability to fight for a better future will be criminalized. Those are the conversations I want to be having with the people here, is getting people the tools so that they can be as powerful as they possibly can in the conversations that they're in, recognizing that we're not convincing these people around sort of specific issues. We're convincing them to do the work in their communities.
What's the imperative now, as you see it? You've been one of those modern day heroes, not just for the state of Tennessee, but, throughout this nation and even the world. You fought against gun violence, and we're seeing it yet again. But what is the imperative in this moment?
The imperative of this election is to fight for our values and the vision for the country that we want to build. We know that there are people who have a version of America that only takes us back, that restricts women's rights, that destroys our climate and our environment, that ensures that guns continue to be in our streets, hurting and harming our communities and shattering the hopes and the visions that we have for our futures. And there's another vision and version of America that says equal opportunity and justice and fairness are on the ballot. And I think that's the future that we have to fight for with Vice President Harris and Governor Tim Walz. When I think about the gun violence epidemic, when I think about the existential crisis of the climate and the impacts that has disproportionately on Black African-American people, we can't afford to sit this out. And the anti-democratic and unconstitutional actions of the Tennessee General Assembly are just a start to what they're trying to take national. And so this is our moment, this is our time to fight back with our voices, fight back with our votes, to fight back as a community to say that the promises of this country, though they have yet to be fulfilled, are still possible, and we're going to make it so.
What's happening in Tennessee? Where do you think Tennessee is going to go when it comes to Kamala and Donald Trump?
The Electoral College will likely go to Donald Trump. But what I also know is hundreds of thousands of people who have not been engaged in the political process are going to show up at the ballot box who haven't since really President Obama. And so I think the energizing and the momentum of this campaign is really helping to transform politics in Tennessee. And we're going to see more Democrats, more progressive people show up and show out in this election that's going to help us elect more Democrats, more progressive people into office.
Do you have any more political surprises for us coming up in the future?
Right now, I'm just trying to serve District 86 as best as I possibly can. So no surprises. Go to the ballot box.
Anything else you'd like to add?
We can't afford to sit this out. A lot of people sat it out in 2016. Our future, our lives of unborn children is on the ballot box. And we have to make sure that we do everything in our power to change the course of history by electing the first Black woman president of the United States and making sure that our values politically meet our moral values in this moment in time. And I'm glad to be in this movement for justice, rooted in love together.
What are you hearing from the vast majority of Black men? I mean, we are not a monolith as Black people. What are you hearing and what are the concerns?
The majority of Black men have already made up their mind to support Vice President Harris and Governor Tim Walz for President of the United States. There's a small minority of them that are really wavering between whether or not they're going to vote for Vice President Harris or the ex-president who's also a felon, who's also a rapist and a sexual assaulter, who also is a white supremacist domestic terrorist. And to them, I really do say the choices are very absolutely clear. We have the most qualified person ever to run for president of the United States. We need to support her. We need to protect. We need to support. We need to defend Black women, just like they have protected, supported, and defended us over the course of history. All of us wouldn't be here if it had not been for Black women in our lives. And all of the mythology and the ideologies of white supremacy and patriarchy in particular that has Black men confused, that somehow electing this patriarchal white supremacist is going to be to the benefit of them, are wrong. It didn't benefit them in 2016. It won't benefit them now. And we have a responsibility to show up on behalf of our community the same way Black women have been showing up on behalf of our community for generations.